Rachel Parker slid her key into the front door on Oak Ridge Drive. It stopped halfway and refused to turn. New brass glinted where her old deadbolt should have been. The porch light was still on a timer she'd set last week, but the welcome mat was gone. The door opened from the inside. A tattooed man leaned on the frame like a host at a party. "Can I help you?" "This is my house," Rachel said. "Why did you change my locks?" He smiled, as if humoring a child. "We rent this place. Been here 2 weeks." Her name was still on the mailbox. Her potted fern sat beside his heavy boots. Behind him, unfamiliar voices drifted through her living room. She dialed 911 with shaking hands. 2 officers arrived, took statements, and examined the paper the man waved. A lease with the right address and a fantasy for a signature. The officers exchanged a look Rachel didn't like. "This appears to be a civil matter," one said gently. "You'll need to file in court." "How long does that take?" "Could be months." By dusk, Rachel and her 2 kids were back in the minivan behind a grocery store. They ate crackers and string cheese under the dome light. Her daughter asked if they could go home tomorrow. Rachel said yes, and tasted the lie. News moved faster than mail on Oak Ridge Drive. Neighbors paused at mailboxes and front lawns. A woman with a beagle whispered, "I heard someone changed her locks." A man shook his head and filmed the porch across the street. Curtains twitched. Garage doors hesitated, then closed. Rachel felt the neighborhood tilt. Past friendly waves, past HOA reminders, into something wary and brittle. If her key didn't work here, whose would? In the front seat, Rachel propped her phone on the steering wheel. Streetlights cast tired halos on her face. "Hi, I'm Rachel Parker," she said, voice steady because it had to be. "Today, someone stole my house." She kept it under a minute. She showed the mailbox, the porch, the new lock. She explained the police couldn't force anyone out without a judge. She held up her deed and 3 utility bills with her name. "If anyone knows what to do, if anyone will stand with me, please." She hit post and stared at the screen like it could answer back. 100 miles away, in a garage that smelled like oil and cold air, a biker named Cole watched Rachel's clip on his cracked phone. Oak Ridge. The name tugged at something older than the engine he was rebuilding. 15 winters ago, a man had yanked him from a stalled pickup during a Carolina whiteout, wrapped him in a blanket, and refused any thanks. The man's name had been Parker. Cole replayed Rachel's face. Same eyes, same stubborn line to the mouth. He opened a group chat he trusted with his life more than any lock. "Need eyes on Oak Ridge Drive at dawn," he typed. "Lawful. Calm. Cameras on. This one's for Parker." Phones lit up in kitchens, truck cabs, and late-shift break rooms from Raleigh to Fayetteville. A ping here, a forward there. Rachel's 1-minute plea jumped across counties like sparks on dry grass. Cole's message sat pinned at the top of a quiet writer's thread. Dawn, lawful, calm, cameras on. Replies stacked up with short confirmations, a few road times, and a prayer hand emoji from a veteran who rarely spoke. In a small apartment over a hardware store, Mia laced her boots and checked her saddlebags. First aid kit, water, a roll of painter's tape, a notebook. She texted, "No blocking driveways, no yelling. We witness." In a farmhouse outside Sanford, 2 brothers topped off tanks and printed a map with alternates around construction. An older rider named Bishop called his niece, a paralegal, and asked what a homeowner should have on hand at sunrise. "Deed, tax bill, photo ID," she said, "and be on camera." He wrote the list on an index card and slid it in his vest. Across the state, engines coughed awake in 1s and 2s. Nobody blasted music. Nobody announced anything on public pages. This wasn't a parade. It was a line of quiet promises forming in the dark. At a church lot where they agreed to meet, someone handed out cheap phone chargers and fluorescent zip ties to mark bikes in case the street got crowded. Cole repeated the rules he'd already typed. We show up, we stand by, we don't trespass, we record. We let the law see what the law needs to see. Heads nodded, helmets clicked shut. Back on Oak Ridge Drive, the house wore its new lock like a dare. The porch light cycled on and off, as if trying to remember which week it belonged to. Inside, voices moved past Rachel's living room walls. Low laughter, a TV too loud for midnight. A curtain swept aside for a second and settled again. On the curb, a pile of her children's drawings puffed up in the night breeze, taped edges fluttering like fish struggling for water. Rachel's minivan sat 2 blocks away, tucked under a willow. The kids slept, tangled in a blanket that smelled like sunscreen in last summer's pool. She scrolled through strangers' comments until the words blurred into the same sentence. Hold on. A neighbor she barely knew knocked on her window and offered a thermos. If you need a witness in the morning, he said, I'm home. Rachel thanked him and stared at the thermos after he left, unsure which part had made her want to cry, the heat in her hands or the idea that someone had thought ahead for her. On the rider's route, highway signs floated through headlight beams. Wake, Harnett, Lee. The cold bit knuckles and crept down sleeves, but the rhythm of the road stitched the miles together. Pairs joined into trios, trios into small packs, each group folding into the next with a quick nod and a wave toward the right lane. They kept gaps open for commuters, let semis pass, and rolled off throttles near sleeping neighborhoods. The plan wasn't choreography, it was courtesy. Cole rode point into the thinning night, the horizon a faint smear of graphite. He pictured the old man in the blizzard, the blanket, the relentless calm, and matched his breathing to that memory. He imagined Rachel's key not turning and felt the old anger rise, then watched it pass like exhaust in a rearview mirror. Anger wouldn't help her. Presence would. By 3, the group chat had gone mostly quiet. The last messages were simple. 5 minutes out, fueling now, turning onto County Road. At 4, the sky began to pale at the edges. Mailboxes and porch flags gained outlines. Dew silvered the lawns. Street by street, the riders peeled off the main road and idled in singles and pairs along the curb, careful not to block driveways, careful to leave a lane clear. Phone cameras faced forward. Voices dropped. Somewhere, a bird tried the morning once, and then again. Oak Ridge Drive exhaled like it had been holding its breath all night. In the calm before sunrise, Rachel saw the first helmet glint, and then another. She checked the mirror, woke her kids with a hand on each shoulder, and whispered, We're not alone. The engines didn't roar. They murmured. The map had turned into a line. The line had turned into people. And the people were almost there. Понимаю. Извини за перерасход. Ниже переписанная портрете в пределах 2000 символов, только текст. Engines faded to a hush as morning thinned the dark. Riders lined Oak Ridge Drive without blocking a single driveway. Porch lights clicked on. A patrol car rolled up slow. Cole lifted his visor. Morning, officer. We're here as witnesses. We'll stay off the property. A nod. Keep it calm. Rachel stepped forward with a folder. Deed, tax bill, ID, yesterday's utility. Paper on paper made a small, final sound. Bishop and Mia walked to the porch and knocked. The tattooed man opened, jaw tight. We've got a lease. Then let's look at it together, Mia said, steady. Out here, on camera. Pages turned. Names didn't match. Dates staggered. A landlord number led to a dead voicemail. The parcel on Rachel's deed matched the brass on the mailbox. Phones recorded from 3 angles. Neighbors stood with coffee, silent and awake. Inside, a TV clicked off. Footsteps shuffled. A second man hovered in the hallway. A woman gathered a charger and toiletries. The officer tried the number again, listened, hung up. "You were scammed," he told the first man, "but you can't stay." For a long breath, nobody spoke. Dew thickened on the rail. The man rubbed his brow. "Give us 10. "You can collect personal items," the officer said. "No damage, nothing that isn't yours. We're recording." The door opened and closed. Shoes, duffel, a laundry basket, a lamp briefly lifted, then returned to the table it came from. A rider at the curb counted quietly what left and what was set back inside. Rachel watched the threshold as if relearning how doors work. A locksmith turned the corner and waited until the officer raised 2 fingers. Then metal clicked, screws eased, a cylinder slipped free. New core in, clean and simple. Keys cut on the stoop, bright shavings curled and fell. 1 key to the officer and back to Rachel. No cheers. No speeches. The riders were presence, not pressure. The men who had claimed the house walked past the line without meeting eyes. The woman whispered, "We didn't know." Mia said, "Keep your receipts. Report the number." Rachel held the new key like a small bird. Cole said, "You're not alone." She nodded, set the shoulder of the key against the lock, and turned. It fit. The door opened on quiet rooms and morning air. The street let out the breath it had been holding. Dawn, at last, sounded like home. Rachel crossed the threshold first, the new key still warm in her palm. The air inside smelled like dust and old TV heat. Cupboard doors were open. A stack of plates sat in the hallway like they'd lost their way. She spoke her children's names, and their footsteps tapped behind her, careful and bright. "Slow," she said. "Look, don't touch yet." They nodded, solemn as museum guards. She opened windows. Cold morning slid through the rooms, carrying out the stale, bringing in birds and distant engines. On the mantel, a picture of her parents lay face down. She set it upright, glass smudged but unbroken, and the house seemed to correct its posture by an inch. In the kitchen, a drawer had been emptied onto the counter. Rubber bands, warranties, a school magnet shaped like a dolphin. Rachel found the envelope with spare keys, now meaningless and past. She kept it anyway. Outside, neighbors drifted closer with trash bags and soft voices. A teen brought a broom. The woman with the beagle tied the leash to her wrist and asked where to start. "Porch," Rachel said. "Then living room." A quiet choreography began. Bags opened, cords coiled, screws gathered, a lampshade righted. Someone gently peeled a sticker from the front window and passed it to Rachel like a small trophy of the morning. Cole stood at the threshold and asked if she wanted riders inside. "Just the porch and front room," she said. "Past that, let's keep it family." He nodded and stayed where the sunlight could find him. Bishop logged the time the locksmith finished. Mia returned a pile of mail to the counter, rubber band neat. The officer handed Rachel a card with a case number and a line about next steps. "If anyone comes back," he said, "call us. Keep your documents handy." Her daughter lifted a milk crate. At the bottom was the battered family album, edges wrinkled, still holding. "Mom," she whispered. Rachel dried her hands on her jeans and flipped to a page with a winter spread. Her father in a parka, ice clinging to his beard, one mitten raised like a toast. She looked up at Cole. "He'd say you were early." Cole smiled. "He taught me not to be late." One by one, engines stirred, then settled, then stirred again as riders peeled away in pairs. No parade, no victory lap, just taillights winking into daylight. Neighbors waved, awkward and grateful. The beagle barked twice and then decided everything was acceptable. By noon, the house had its heartbeat back, a kettle ticking, shoes by the door, the fridge humming like it remembered her name. Rachel stood on the porch with the new key on its own ring. The street looked ordinary again, which felt like a miracle disguised as Tuesday. She set a note on the inside of the door, 3 words and a date, then laughed at herself and took a picture for the file she was keeping now. She stepped outside and thanked the last rider still at the curb. "If someone else needs this," she said, "send them my way." Cole tugged his glove and climbed onto his bike. "That's the plan," he answered. He saluted the mailbox, of all things, and rolled off. When the quiet finally stayed, Rachel locked the door from the inside and turned to her children. "Home," she said, and the word fit like a hand into a glove that had been waiting, patient, for the right owner to come back.